Okay, so I had already partially reassembled this engine because I wasn't planning on doing anything else with it after seeing the sleeve peel, but since I think I have this, it should fit, hopefully. I'll pull it apart completely now, put all the parts in the ultrasonic, and hope I have a set of bearings for it. And I'll also be completely disassembling the carb as well. That feels really bad. Doesn't feel pliable. I felt it crack. I know I don't have a replacement seal there for that, so that's gonna suck. Peeled up sleeve. I don't know if I'll be so lucky as to have this just pop right out. It's probably going to take a little bit more heat and effort to get that out. That's alright. Now for this, I need a special tool. And my special tool is round nose pliers, because there's a little circular rings in here that clips that you have to pull out, and you have to be extremely careful and put your finger over it so that they don't go shooting out all over the place. So you grab it, cover it, pull it out like that. Now still need this, so I don't think that one has a piston pin in it, and of course you need this. Might have a piston pin in that piston, I don't know. I mean, look. Nope, no piston pin. So you still need your piston pin, connecting rod, and those clips. This is no longer useful because ABC sleeves and pistons are matched sets, which is why they're sold like this, because it's a matched set. So this is just an item of curiosity right now. It's no longer of use. So that's all there is to disassembling it. I'm going to take this outside, heat it up, get the bearings out, put everything in the ultrasonic, and then I'll be ready to reassemble this. First, let me go ahead and take this carb apart. Crud in there that needs to be cleaned up. So the spring won't go in the ultrasonic, but that screw will. There'll be a spring in here also. I'm probably just going to put that in an isolated little bit of LAs and not really put it in the ultrasonic, or maybe just wipe it down. And then the carb body will go in there just like this. Now, one thing I want to show you, after I clean this up, looks like this throttle arm is bent too. Bend that back. Take that ball link off. Once this is cleaned up, what I do is I always have some 1200, I think it's 1200, 1500, and then 2000 grit sandpaper on hand. Now granted, I'm going to do this on this right now, and it's already got a little bit of oil on it from being in there, from that 3-in-1 I put on it the other day, but this is what I'll do to clean the carbon off of these guys. This stuff in here I'm not too worried about because it's going in the ultrasonic, but this stuff can be kind of stubborn, so I'll just clean that barrel up just like that, put it in the ultrasonic, see how it fits in the carb. It should fit nice and smooth like that. And heck, for all intents and purposes, I could probably just put it in there like that. One thing I do want to do is, I don't have my flashlight, make sure there is a, okay, there is a low speed needle deeply recessed in there, so that's a good thing. So anyway, that's the rest of the disassembly of this engine. Okay, so here's the majority of the clean parts after they just came out of the ultrasonic. This bearing is a rear bearing, it's brand new. This is the original front bearing, which I may have to use. Here's another, I think it's an R6 bearing that doesn't have a shield on it. I didn't have a new bearing for this. So basically what I did was I cleaned them up in the ultrasonic, oiled them real good, and I'm just kind of testing them like this. That bearing sounds the best, but it doesn't have a shield in front. This is a used engine, it's never going in an airplane, it's never being sold. So honestly, I really don't care if I have brand new bearings for it or not, but if you're ever gonna, you know, rebuild an engine that you're gonna fly with and keep and possibly sell, you need to use new bearings. But listen to this. If the bearing makes sound like that, it really just, I mean, it spins okay, but you know, I could go with either of these because, like I said, it's a used engine, it's never going to be sold. I never sell items that have been given to me anyway. Those are keepers, so I don't honestly care what bearing goes in here as long as it's good enough for a few runs. Probably be that one. Be interesting to see if it leaks since it doesn't have a front shield on it. Now this crankshaft did not look like this when it came out of the ultrasonic cleaner. It was, you know, had stuff on it still. So what I do is, using my same like 2000 grit sandpaper, I oiled this thing all up real good. And this is how I clean my crankshafts off. I just do this type of deal. Scrub the whole counterweight, wipe it down, and then re-oil it real good. I always put a real good coat of oil on all of these parts just by hand. You just kind of oil it up so it's got a nice coat of oil. Same thing with the crankcase. I didn't show it because there's really no point in it. You just put oil in there and rub it around with your finger and get all the parts. I even do the outside just to have a really light coating of oil on the outside. Here's our carb barrel, but I obviously cleaned that up before I put it in there. It's oiled up, ready to go. And then for screws and stuff, I always just have like a plastic container here that's clean, and I put oil in it. And I just kind of give everything a little bath so that everything's got a little bit of coat of oil on it for reassembly, and same with our connecting rod. So everything here is ready to be put together. What I'm probably going to do is just go ahead and put this bearing on here. Thought that was the right size bearing. I have to dress that crankshaft up a little bit more. Most times people say, oh, put the bearing in first. And you can do that. You can put the bearing in the crankcase housing first. Then you got to make sure you got the right size socket or whatever to push it in place, and it can still kind of be off center. So I always just think it's easier if I can just put it on the crankshaft itself here, and then just use that crank counterweight as the bearing material, and then you just slide it right in there like that. Obviously I'll heat it up and use my press and press it in place, but front bearing's got to go in first. So I think this was the one I was going to use. So we'll oil this baby up and go outside and put these bearings in and finish the reassembly. Okay, here's our crankcase with our bearings installed now. I'm just going to throw a little bit more oil in there on those bearings. Rotate it around. See how smooth it is. And I'm pretty much just going to be quiet now and reassemble the rest of this engine, because there's really not a whole lot to it. It's just a two-stroke engine. Now, one thing of note here is on these, leave it over this, these ASP sleeve and piston sets, you got one hole that's smaller than the other. That is such a great design feature that OS for some reason didn't do. I think Sato did it on a couple of their engines, but for the most part they didn't do that either. So obviously what that means is the wrist pin or the piston pin's got to go in this one side, but you only have to worry about a clip on the one side. It looks like there is a groove in there to accept that clip. So if you happen to have lost one of those clips, well, you're in good shape there. On the OS piston there was a arrow pointing to the direction for the exhaust. There's not one on this, so it's a 50-50 shot. So anyway, a light coat of oil on this stuff. Putting that clip in is, I won't say it's tricky, but I usually put the opened end in first and then just kind of push it down in, and it should be clipped in place. So now the connecting rod has a chamfered side, doesn't have a mark on it at all denoting the front, but it's very hard to see on this camera. But the side that has the chamfer goes towards the front of the engine. So that's how I'm going to put this on here. Well, I hope I did that under the camera. Now there is a notch in there, top of the sleeve, matches with a pin right there. So what I want to do is I want to bring this up some, not all the way, but I always kind of like to use a little rocking motion to get this to start going in there, and then it'll engage on the piston. And then before you get it too far, just make sure you line that up, and it does fit properly. There's a gap there for the head gasket or shim to fit into, so this should be ideal. So we can get rid of that, I think, and start putting our head on here with our oiled screws. I'm not running them down tight, I'm just running them down until they touch. Doing it in a diagonal pattern so that everything goes on evenly. And as far as torquing them down, I always use, when it hurts my fingers doing it this way, it's tight enough. And then I'll go around each one again, just give it a little bit more. Not a lot. And this is just one of those things, you just do it by feel. I mean, I've done this for many years, so I know what it feels like. And I'm not going to rotate this through the top dead center, but I can feel there's a pretty damn decent pinch there. So, we're in good shape here. What happened to our rear cover? You know what, I forgot to put the rear cover in the ultrasonic, but oh well.